Sure, Hare Krishna. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachanani Visesa Sinivadi Krishyanti. So we're going to read something and then we'll discuss. This is a lecture Prabhupada gave in 1968. So Prahlad Maharaj is accepted as the greatest personality, greater than Brahma, than the demigods, than the yogis. But this is humbleness, meek. In other words, Prahlad Maharaj is a great devotee, but he doesn't think himself a great devotee. In the Bible, it is also said, the humble and meek can enter into the kingdom of God. So out of his humbleness, meekness, he's presenting himself, quote, these great personalities, they failed to pacify the Lord. How is it possible for me, who has got this body born of a passionate father? In other words, he's not taking credit. He's saying that this is like amazing mercy. There's a book called Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and Narada Muni is searching out the greatest devotee. And every devotee he goes to tells him, I'm not the greatest devotee. Narada Muni is glorifying them. You're this, you're this, you're this. He said, no, I'm none of those things. If you really want to see a great devotee, you should go see this devotee. And then the devotee that Narada Muni met describes that devotee he wants him to meet. You should meet such and such a devotee. You should meet this king. He's really great devotee. You should meet Indra. You should meet Lord Brahma. So Indra says, no, not me, Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma says, no, not me, Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva says, no, not me. You really want to meet a great devotee, then you meet Prahlad Maharaj. They went to Prahlad Maharaj and said, look at, nobody could pacify the Lord, only you could pacify him. That's what's being described here. And Prahlad Maharaj says, he makes excuses, like these are objective realities of the good qualities, how you were protected, you're a great devotee even though born in a family of demons. The Lord came just to show his affection to you, etc., etc. And then he would turn it around and make an excuse for everything, why it wasn't actually a symptom that he has good qualities. It had nothing to do with him. So that's what's being described here. It's Krishna's mercy. So Prabhupada goes on, this is another lecture. But that is the conception, advanced devotee. They never think that they are very highly advanced devotees. What is advanced devotee? What devotion can we offer to Krishna? He's unlimited. He's kindly accepting our little service, that's all. Don't be proud of becoming a great devotee. This is the cause of fall down. So, the attitude of a devotee is, no matter how great my service is, or how great I think I am, Krishna is so much greater. So, how great can it be? So a devotee always thinks, I'm small. And whatever I do is insignificant. And as soon as you think whatever you do is great, and then you're setting yourself up for trouble. That's what Prabhupada is saying here. Don't be proud of becoming a great devotee. The reality, of course, is that when you become a great devotee, you will certify you're not a devotee. That's how you know somebody's great. So no, I'm not a devotee. I have no devotion. And they feel that way. We can say that, but we don't really feel that way. I mean, we might feel that way because it's true that we don't have devotion. But even in that case, sometimes we feel, I have some devotion. But the one who actually has the devotion feels like he doesn't have it. That's just the nature of prema. I just leave lost what we were reading. Hold on. Technical difficulties. According to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions, a devotee should never be puffed up by material power. He should know that material power is the result of one's past good activities and is consequently transient. At any moment, all one's material opulence can be finished. Therefore, a devotee is never proud of such opulence. He is always humble and meek, considering himself lower than a piece of straw. Because of this, the devotees are eligible to return home back to Godhead. That's from Madhya Lila, chapter 16. You asked the question yesterday, the relationship between humility and chanting. So I want to read something here. That Srila Bhaktisiddhanta writes. We had a workshop yesterday on humility. This question came up because in Shashtakam Mahaprabhu has said, by becoming humble you can chant. So what does humility have to do with chanting? Well, one of the answers is humility has to do with everything. Because pride means I'm imitating Krishna, humility means I've stopped the imitation, I've stopped the competition. So, but the interesting thing is, unless you're pure, you can't be humble. But you have to be humble to become pure. So you can meditate on that today. If you're not humble, you can't become pure. If you're not pure, you can't become humble.
It's appears in the Jaiva Dharma. In the Jaiva Dharma, in the chapter 9, I think there's something that has this relationship.
Yeah. But that's true about everything. Unless you have it, you can't be Krishna conscious. Unless you're Krishna conscious, you can't have it. We talked about that yesterday. That what you don't have, you practice. So you fake it a little bit. I don't have humility, but I need humility to be Krishna conscious. And when I'm Krishna conscious, I'll become humble. So where do I start? Then, one of the things that Prabhupada has taught us or explained is that how you would define humility in the stage of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti will be a little different than humility, how it manifests in the stage of prema. Because what we often hear in our shastras is the humility of devotees in the stage of prema. So it's very extreme. And as we said on Saturday, that extreme kind of humility for us, it doesn't have any grounding in realization. It would only manifest, with a psychological problem. But it's not humility. But those external symptoms would not manifest unless someone has prema or has someone has severe suicidal tendencies. I'm useless, worthless, why live? What's the point of existing? That's what Mahaprabhu is saying. What's the point of existing? I'm separated from Krishna and I'm still alive. That means I have no love. So it obviously can't mean that for us. So it has to mean something different for us. So I need humility to become humble. When I love Krishna, I will become humble. So what does that humility look like for us? In so many things, Prabhupada has defined with double definitions. What does it mean to be a pure devotee? So say pure devotee, you think of Prabhupada, right? So if you're not on Prabhupada's level, you're not a pure devotee. But it's not exactly how Prabhupada defined it. There's a definition. Can you be a pure devotee and be on the level of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti? Well, Prabhupada said you can when you're willing to do whatever your guru asks you without any desire to get anything, then you're a pure devotee. You're engaged in pure devotional service. So that's a definition that relates to someone doing Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Can you be a pure devotee? Yeah, you can be, by that definition, on that level. Can you be humble? Yes. By another set of definitions that relate to the practice of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, this is what humility would look like, A, B, C, and D. It's not going to look like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's not going to look like Krishnadas Kaviraj, who's feeling lower than a worm in stool. You know, what if I told you, okay, for today's class we have an exercise, and the exercise is I would like you to meditate on a worm in stool. And meditate on that, that's your position. It wouldn't really be that fruitful, because that's not something we could really relate to. But if we said, today, meditate on your motives for serving Krishna. Are you serving purely, or do you want to get some recognition? And so that would be something you could do, and that would relate to where you're at, and that would be helpful. So if I can come to the point where I am not motivated, or I'm aware of my motives, and I'm trying to only do things to please Krishna, not to gain any recognition for myself, that would be humility on the stage of Vaidhi Bhakti. So Prabhupada says in the Gita, his definition of humility there is to not want to be recognized. So that's what we deal with on our level, because that's the challenge. Mahaprabhu says it is necessary to be humbler than a blade of grass if one is really anxious to take the name of Godhead. So, how do you translate humbler than a blade of grass? What does that mean? For you right today, what does that mean? I go outside and meditate on grass? Not exactly. I try to feel humbler than a blade of grass. Okay, I'm 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. Maybe I could understand that, but it actually means, how would I relate to the world in a humble state? What does that mean? Somebody is not kind to me. What does it mean to be humbler than a blade of grass? Just accept it. Tolerate it. That's what it means. Not, We pray for the help of other persons when we consider ourselves helpless. Bhaktisiddhanta here is defining, it's giving a definition of humility as dependence. Because the question was, what's the relation between humility and chanting? And now he's giving a definition of humility that will relate to chanting. And he's making the point that if you need some help in doing something that you can't do alone, you ask others for help. When we think that I cannot do something myself, it is necessary to take the help of others if I want to do the work at all. Sri Gaur Sundar has told us to call upon the name of Godhead, which means that he also told us to be humbler than a blade of grass. This is interesting, when we call upon the name. In other words, when you chant Hare Krishna, your mood is, I'm a conditioned soul, I'm entangled in the material world, and I cannot get out of the material world on my own, and I need help. So the humbler is, what did Prabhupada say? Krishna engaged me in your service. Why am I praying to be engaged in Krishna's service? Because right now I'm engaged in Maya's service, and I can't get out of Maya's service. I'm bound by Maya. Krishna, help me. This is something I can't do on my own. So the mood of humility is, I need help to do this because this task is impossible. Can't do it on my own. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm praying to Krishna to help me do something it's impossible to do on my own. I can't get out of the material world on my own. It's impossible. Hare Krishna. I need help. I need help. Help me, help me, help me. That's what it means. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta is saying. If we call upon Godhead for converting him into our servant, or want to take his help for doing any work on our own account, we cannot preserve the quality of humility greater than that of a blade of grass. So now he's giving a very interesting definition of pride. He's saying here, if you ask Krishna to help you in your sense gratification, that's pride. That's not humility. Humility is, I ask Krishna to help me love you. I need help to serve you. That's humility. Please help me so I can enhance my sense gratification. That's not humility. If we call upon Godhead for converting him into our servant, or want to take his help for doing any work on our own account, we cannot preserve the quality of humility greater than a blade of grass. So then you could say he's defining humility as the motive, the pure desire to serve Krishna and ask for Krishna's help to do that. That's humility. Because humility, right, if you can't do something and you ask someone for help, that means you're humble. Because if you're not humble, you won't ask. I'll figure it out. Don't tell me what to do. Right? I can do it myself. Yes.
Maharaj, in this, prayer of asking help, that's, very, very important, and, that's how we become humble. But on the other side, we always, get instructions here from, Shastras that we have to put our full effort, like, attentive in chanting, follow the regulative principles, serve devotees, and so many things that we should be doing it. So Maharaj, how to, put these two things together? On one side that we see, okay, I have to do, and on the other side we say that I'm totally helpless.
Yeah. So the balance between I'm the doer and I'm not the doer. Krishna, I can't do this, I'm helpless, please help me. How do you balance that with, Prabhupada said you have to fly your own airplane. Like the spiritual master, he can't do it for you. But they say, I can't do your push-ups for you. I can inspire you, but you have to do them. So there's a balance there, and they're not actually different. It's actually one in a sense. I am weak. I am entrapped in the material world. I could never get out without the mercy of Krishna, without the mercy of Guru. So the Guru gets you out and says, go this way. Right? So you couldn't do that on your own because you're lost in the forest, in the forest of material existence. You're lost. You don't know how to get out. And even if you have some idea how to get out, practically you couldn't walk out. It's too far. You need help in it. You need directions and you need strength and so forth. So the Guru comes and says, it's this way. And if you walk this way, you'll be able to get out. And they'll go do it. So you were dependent on those instructions. You were dependent on that person to guide you. Without that, you're helpless. But he can't do your push-ups for you. And the reason is also because Krishna gives you independence, so he won't do your push-ups for you. He'll only say, this is how to do the push-ups. But Krishna's not going to make you do anything that you don't do, that you don't choose to do. So, okay, here's how you're entangled. Here's how you get out. This is the path. This is the way. You decide. So you're dependent on me to tell you how to get out. But your choice is whether or not you're going to do it. So the point is, on your own, you can't do it. So, and you understand, like every one of us has to understand that on our own we can't do it. We don't have the guidance or the strength. So then the Guru is saying, well, if you walk this way, you'll have enough endurance to make it out. It's a long walk, but walk this way, so many miles a day, then rest, then sit down, then take a walk. So he's telling you everything to do. So he's, in a sense, giving you the strength. I'm giving you the directions, and I'm giving you the strength. It's not your strength, and it's not your intelligence, because you didn't know how to get out. But it's your choice. The choice will never be made by your Guru for you. He'll only tell you what you should do and how to do it. All of which you wouldn't know. All of which you wouldn't know. And he'll give you the strength to do it. Like, okay, here's the job. Here's the money. Here's the instructions. Here's the car. Go here, buy this, do this, put this together. Right? So it's all coming from me. You couldn't do it on your own. You don't have the resources, you don't have the knowledge. But you have to go do it now. You don't do it. So it's like, you want to do this? Here's how to do it. Strength, you could say, is the money is the strength. And the instructions is the Shastra. Okay. So Guru is giving you the strength. He's giving you the knowledge. You want to take it? If you don't take it, you can't do it. So you're helpless. And you're still helpless while you're doing it. Because it's not your money, it's not your car, it's not your plan. It's all given to you. The only thing that you're doing is making a decision to do it. Okay, am I determined to do this? Am I going to do it? But all the resources are there. They're not your resources. You may give up in the middle, even though you have the resources. Right? But if you don't make the effort... Now, another thing is, I may not give you any of those resources unless I know you want to do it. And you're willing to do it. Because Bhaktisiddhanta said, mercy is a byproduct of your own effort. Because Krishna, you say, Mahatma Prabhu, I really want to build this. I really want to do this. And I know you know how to do it. And I know you can help me. So you're begging, you're pleading. And then I say, okay, looks like you would be a good person to do this. So I give you the resources. I give you the information. And then you go do it. So Bhaktisiddhanta in another place said that mercy and strength will come to those who want it, who ask for it, who need it. So Bhaktisiddhanta is saying, when you're chanting Hare Krishna, you're in the mood, Krishna, I need strength, I need help. That's humility. And if you think, I don't need help, I don't need strength, I'm pretty smart, then Krishna goes, okay, you can fall on your face if you want, thinking that you're strong, if that's what you want to do. But as soon as you think you're weak, then I come and I pick you up. As soon as you think you're strong, okay, do it on your own. So you're making that choice, and then Krishna will help or not. Yes.
Then what is this concept of causeless mercy, Maharaj? Like, we always hear that Mahaprabhu's,
no material cause. You're not. It's not coming from anything you can do materially. But it doesn't matter how much mercy is available. Okay, what did you do to deserve Prabhupada's mercy? Nothing. But you did something, not to deserve it, but you did something to get it. What did you do to get it? You made some effort. So you're getting it not because you're qualified, but you're putting your hand out. We have this saying in America, handouts. What are handouts? It's like, I'm hungry, we're giving out handouts, or clothes, you don't have clothes. We're giving something free, it's a handout. What does a handout mean? Your hand's out. So Mahaprabhu's mercy is a handout, but you don't get it if your hand's not out. And so, what's your qualification for getting a handout? In a sense, your qualification is you don't have food or you don't have clothes. You're poor. So that's, a sort of qualification. But really, is your hands out. That's all. But there is you don't have any. So causeless mercy means, what have you done to deserve the mercy? Nothing. You came into the store that's distributing the mercy. That's basically what you did, and you put your hand out. That's what you did. So in that sense, you did something. You made some effort. Yes?
Can I discuss direction or an advice that you give me? Because, for example, I asked for an advice, but I disagree with this.
Is it on this topic? Oh. It's on this topic, or not exactly? Well, maybe. Let's explore this first. Usually when a disciple disagrees, it's because it's interfering with their sense gratification. So first consider if that instruction interfered with your sense gratification. That's why I disagree. It also may be, it may be impractical. So you may disagree because it's impractical. but it may be because I don't like it, because I don't get sense gratification. So I don't know what the instruction was, so you can think about that. Is that the reason or a different reason? Yeah, of course. Nobody wants their sense gratification interfered with. You see, also, the thing about having a spiritual master is it's kind of like the fun's over, because you want to go right and he says go left. You know, so if you want to go right, don't take a guru, because he might say go left. So when you take a guru, it's like, okay, he's gonna instruct me. So it might hurt, but at the end of my life, I'll be at Krishna's lotus feet. And if I tried it on my own, I might have a good time, have a lot of parties and fun, but I won't end up at Krishna's feet. Right? So that's why, you know, the first item of knowledge is humility, because humility means erase everything on the blackboard or pour the cup out. I don't know. So that's why Prabhupada said, when you approach your guru, whatever you know, or at least not what you know materially, but what you know spiritually, you have to kind of erase that and say, okay, write on my board. And sometimes it's difficult, because they'll write something on the board, but wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Now, if it's something material, that you could discuss. If it's something spiritual, then you try to understand, okay, it doesn't make sense to me. I have to understand, okay, it must be right, and then I try to understand, how is this right? Now, if we're talking about, did we go to the moon or women's brain, that's not like Shastra, you know. There could be discussion, you know. Prabhupada, did it really happen? Well, and Prabhupada said maybe they went to Rahu, but I don't think they could go to the moon, and this, that, and the next. But when it's Shastra, then Prabhupada might say something like, it doesn't make sense to us. Okay, I have to figure out how this makes sense. Yeah, sometimes it takes you 10 years. I finally understood, you know. I doubted Prabhupada said this. I always doubted it. And now I finally understood it. Yeah. So that's there also. But that's the first item of knowledge, humility. And so humility means erase the blackboard. And then the guru writes on the blackboard. It's like this. And the disciple has faith. And if the disciple has doubts, then they say, Guru Maharaj, that doesn't make sense to me. And then you discuss.
But in the case that I have one guru, but I have another kind of gurus, they give me an instruction that cancel like the other one. How you can manage this kind of thing?
By telling them the other instruction that you got, and say, well, I already got this instruction, so.
But sometimes you go to a guru and present the situation, and he gives an advice, and then you go to another guru and he presents another advice. How could you decide? It happens. It happened to me actually.
There's a couple of things you can do. You try to look at both advices and see what's practical for you. Or you go to one of the gurus and say, I got both of these advices, what do you think? Sometimes the person who's with you in the situation may be giving the best advice, as opposed to the person you're asking general, but he doesn't know. That's what I find. You know, because the same thing happens to me. People come to me and say, my guru told me to do this. After they explain the situation, and I say, did he understand the situation? Because that instruction, it's a good instruction in general, but applied to your situation, it doesn't make sense. And they say, no, he didn't. I go, well, that makes sense. Well, I say, well, I think in this situation you should do this, and I think if he knew all the details, he probably would have said this. The only thing I may not know is maybe there's a past history with that person I don't know. And maybe there's a reason that guru gave that instruction, because he knows the person really well. Mm-hmm. And he knows their limitations and he knows their weaknesses. So sometimes, you know, the more a person knows you, the better the instruction, and the more they know the context. Right? So that's something to consider. But that's a definite reality that, you know, especially when the guru is not that close with the disciple and doesn't know the details, they may just give an instruction which is general. So, but general means that it's like, you have a headache, here's an aspirin. That's a general instruction. But actually the headache, the aspirin is not the solution. You have a problem with your whatever, some other part of your body, and it's causing a headache. So someone else knows, no, don't take aspirin. That's not what you need. You need this because you have to heal this. Something like that. So. Anyway, did that answer your question?
Yes.
The point of your question is that you can never put your Krishna consciousness in this position if it's just chance. If I get the mercy or I don't get the mercy. Mercy is causeless, which means it's given out to everyone without qualification. We don't look to see. It's like a university and anybody can go. But okay, anybody can go to this university, but you actually have to register. And you have to go there, and you have to study. But there was no qualification. So once you get the mercy, then you have to use it, and then now it's up to you how you apply yourself. So there's your effort. Now, the other aspect I was saying, how you apply yourself will also determine how much mercy you continue to get. So the mercies, I had this experience when I was in university. I was taking a class, I forget what class it was. Probably physics or something. And something that was difficult for me. Or maybe it was English. Reading the Odyssey, 700-page book, putting me to sleep. And I didn't remember much of what I was reading, and questions would come up in class and couldn't answer. So I would go see the professor, and we'd talk, and I'd ask him questions. And I didn't think I was very good in that subject, and I got a really good grade in that subject. I was like, how did I get a good grade in this subject? And I realized, because I was going to the professor's office, he saw that I wanted to learn, and he gave me a good grade. So you get mercy when is that true? The teacher sees that you want to try, so effort is part of the grading system, isn't it? Yeah, sometimes in some schools, attendance is part of your grade. Isn't it? Class participation is part of your grade, not just your test score. So, we're opening this university. We have the best teachers in the country. Anyone can, you don't even need a high school degree. Anybody can go. Here's the registration date. Come and register. You can take any classes you want. Okay. Now, that's great. I'm in the university. Does that mean I'm going to graduate? No. That's the mistake we make. Okay, I got the mercy. I got initiated. Okay, let's go to sleep. It's all going to happen. No. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, initiation is like, I don't know if he used this example, but the example I think is, because I did this with my daughter, when she was learning to ride a bike, she had training wheels. And then at a certain age I said, you're too old for training wheels, let's take them off. She's like, no, I need them. No, take them off. So she's trying to ride and she doesn't do it. She didn't do it. So I said, we were at our house. So we were maybe 100 yards from our house. And I said, look at the front door. Just focus on the front door. That's what I want you to do. And I'm going to push you. And we were going to get the speed. So I pushed her. She looked at the front door, and that was the first time she rode without training wheels. So what did I do? I gave this push. He said initiation is like that push, but she had to keep pedaling. So he said it's an impetus. And if you think initiation is the guru doing everything, no. Everything the guru is doing is the instruction. So now you're in class, you got these great teachers, they're giving you these great instructions, and you fall asleep in class. And you get it, and you fail your class, and you're like, why did you give me an F? I thought this was all causeless mercy. No, the causeless mercy was that you got in here, and the mercy was that I'm teaching you, and you don't have to pay. That's the mercy. But you have to give yourself mercy. You have to use the mercy. You have to cook. It's like saying, you put everything in the kitchen. The ghee, the butter, the milk, the grains, the fruits, and expect it to cook itself. No, so the guru gives you everything and the instructions to cook. You don't have to pay for it. Everything's there, but you have to cook it. And so when you cook it, then you're utilizing the mercy, and then you get more mercy. Okay, we have a question. I asked Krishna to give strength to have more discipline, to be steady. And I am trying to chant in that mood of prayer. So now when I chant, I keep reminding myself to be in that mood. That's perfect. Seymour. Seymour is also a name of somebody. Simon. Which makes me not focus on hearing the name, and think a lot while chanting. You see what he's saying? He's saying, I'm chanting in that mood, but then I don't focus. Well, what are you focusing on? That doesn't make sense. I don't understand how you could be in the mood of praying to Krishna to help you and not be focused. Doesn't make sense. You have to explain that. It's Tony or June. You have to explain how you could be. Your mind could not be focused. How your mind could not be focused if you're dependent. I just want to say this class was spontaneous. I mean, we planned it last night. I just didn't tell anyone.
Didn't say anything.
So sometimes, if I'm giving a class, I'll just turn on Facebook for whoever's around. Krishna Karshani says, I was wondering, maybe we should not take too many Siksha gurus, because different gurus may have different moods. We could get confused. Yeah, that could
That's
be.
true.
One thing I could say is, it's a good point. Your Siksha guru should be in the mood of your group. But, okay, now it's time for something controversial to wake all of you up who are sleepy. Sometimes what happens is, as you grow as a devotee, your mood changes. So you take a guru, usually take a guru because you're in that mood. But then maybe like let's say 5 years from now, you're like totally into, you want to get a farm and a community and ecology and natural living. And your guru is like flying all over the universe, driving in cars in the city, preaching. And he's talking about book distribution and making devotees. And so-and-so Maharaj is talking about farms and the importance of Varnashram and what's the use of teaching unless you have an example. And you don't relate to your guru anymore. But when you took initiation, you were out on the street distributing books, and that was your life. So sometimes your mood changes, your mood shifts. And so the idea of having Siksha gurus in the same mood, I like that idea. But sometimes when you grow, your mood's different, and you actually want a Siksha guru in a different mood because you're not getting that from your guru, and you need that. Or like you're totally into puja, and your guru is totally a Sankirtan person. You're asking about puja. It's like, don't ask me. You want to, learn about puja. Krishna Chaitra Maharaj. That's the person you want to. He'll tell you everything about puja. He studied puja at university as part of his degree program. He worked with a deity worship ministry. That may be an example. And that is a typical historical example. You get a guru and you take Diksha and you want to learn something, he goes, you learn from him. It's like a university. Learn from him this. And I think it's easier if I'm learning deity worship from this person, because that's not about a mood, so to speak, it's a topic. And so now that person for the next 3 months, he's your guru. You're surrendered to him. He's teaching you deity worship. So there won't be any conflict there, right? Yes.
Well, I think, I like to read a lot and I like to learn a lot. So I think that to apply the things that you mentioned, is better if I ask you about, for example, I want to know how to cook, and you give me a suggestion about who is the guru of cooking or something like that.
Yeah.
So
that's how our tradition works. When in our movement we were upgrading the standards of deity worship, Prabhupada said to ask his godbrothers, because they were experts in that. That's what they, ask the godbrothers that are pujaris in temples. And as he said, that's not my field of expertise. He could direct us where to go. Or, sometimes, and Prabhupada said, when he was leaving his body, he said, so for the burial, you'll ask so-and-so, he'll show you what to do. It wasn't like we had to keep everything. In our society, if there was an expert, we didn't know, he'd say, go to him. So you learn from him. Thank you. There's that relationship while you learned, and then the relationship may or may not continue. In these particular situations, it was just learn the deity worship, learn how to do the samadhi. It wasn't some ongoing relationship. So that's very easy. That's very,
So, as conditioning, that we have this very strong tendency to do comparison, and especially when we...
Compare yourself to other devotees?
No, like gurus. Like...
who's better?
Comparing gurus, who's better, and similar, like by results, is doing, this big, and so...
Oh, yeah, okay.
And how to deal with that, and...
Okay. You're asking, how do you, for you personally, how do you find the right guru and not see it from a material point of view, how many disciples he has,
right, and all
how
those
many
things.
shlokas he knows?
And even if after getting gurus, like who to, of course we get instructions, but then we have Siksha gurus, and those...
How to choose Siksha gurus?
Yeah, how to, and not to compare, externally, and how to deal with
Well, I think one good place to start, which is extremely helpful in this discussion, is start with yourself. Before you start with which guru is qualified, look at the mirror and say, am I even qualified to be a disciple of that guru? That's where it starts. And I'll tell you why. Because in my experience, the advancement of a devotee depended much less on who was their guru, and much more about their dedication to guru, whoever embodied guru. Because guru is not only a person, it's a principle. Guru represents Krishna. It's a tattva, right? So that's the idea. He's your guru, whoever one it is, whether he's Mahabhagavat or Madhyamadakari or Indian or American, he's got one disciple, 100 million disciples, whatever it is, the most important thing is, do you see Krishna in this person? And do you respect Krishna, the guru as Krishna, and do you serve humbly and so on? That's most important. So I think inherent in your question is that problem that people are looking too much to what is qualification of guru rather than what is my qualification of a disciple. Because we had some rough times in ISKCON, and some people had gurus who had rough times, and those gurus had to walk out on their position. And so many devotees went on in their Krishna consciousness. And even in spite of the fact that their gurus were not doing so well, they were doing very well because they were dedicated, to Prabhupada, and they accepted Prabhupada as their guru and served him. So I could see it was a mentality that they had. And then other people who I thought had better gurus weren't even doing that well. It's like we have disciples of Prabhupada. So if that's the case of what you say, then those who are disciples of Prabhupada should be in the best position, theoretically. But that's not true. Because it depends on the disciple, right? That's like the same thing. You're in the university. Okay, you're in the best university. That's great. But what about you? And what is the best university for you? Is Harvard the best university for you? No, that's too hard for me. Or Harvard's, it's more on medicine and business, but I'm in art and music. No, I should go to Berkeley College of Music, School of Music. That's better for me. So it's what are you as a disciple, and what guru is better for you? Maybe he's not technically the most advanced, but for you, maybe the best. Then, inherent also in this question is then you get into material considerations. Then you're going to look at number of disciples. Well, he must be better because he has more disciples, and the one who has the most disciples must be the best.
I disagree.
Yeah, we're saying this is a material consideration, conditioned by material society. You have more. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said something, which I don't know if many people are aware of. He said, you live with your guru for a year and study him, and the disciple studies the guru studies the disciple. But of course we can't do that. But maybe in some cases, but not always. So he said, you want to study and see if it's compatible. You didn't, obviously you want to study to see if he's advanced, but I think in ISKCON, the idea of studying to see if he's Krishna conscious or not is like, it's unlikely after 45, 50 years in Krishna consciousness and he's still here, and he's been a guru for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, it's unlikely that's really a consideration. Is he Krishna conscious or not? The main consideration is am I going to learn, be inspired? Can I surrender? Can I take shelter? That's the real consideration. Because if the real consideration was how advanced he was, then why wouldn't the GBC just pick the 3 most advanced devotees and say everybody take from them? But the GBC is always saying, we need more gurus. Why? Because more means more personal relationship, means different varieties of gurus. At one point, what if we only had sannyasi gurus? Well, some people prefer grihastha guru. Some people actually want a female guru, but it's not allowed yet. But there are people waiting and asking to take shelter of female gurus also. So, what's right for you as a disciple? And are you a disciple? Are you in the right consciousness? Also, we're talking here about faith in the order of the guru. Do you have faith in this person? When they talk, can you just say yes? Does it make sense to you? Can they explain Krishna consciousness in a way that it penetrates, that it works for you, that it pushes you forward, that it helps you overcome attachments you're not able to do on your own? It helps you to see things differently that you couldn't see on your own. Is it taking you to a new level of Krishna consciousness? If that happens, automatically you won't think, is this person my 6-year guru? It happens. So a lot of this happens. It's not, okay, here's 6 people, I'm grading them. He's got 10 points, he's 10.5, 9.8, but his kirtans are better, so I'm going to up that a bonus point. He's at 11, It's not exactly like that. I mean, it's not, it shouldn't be that way. It is when this person is helping you so much, you just naturally want to serve, submit. The relationship is existing. It's like getting married. Sometimes by the time you propose, you already know you're getting married. It's already happened. The proposal was like, of course, I'll marry you. You already know that. We're together. We're made for one another. It's obvious. So it's a little bit like that. So, now, some people will say, well, the more advanced, the better. The more he knows, the better. And you can't deny that. But look at ISKCON. If you take Diksha from Guru A, does that mean you can't listen to Guru B? So Guru B, he knows everything about Gaur Tattva. He's like the Gaur Tattva Acharya. And nobody understands on that level, the depth. And nobody understands Rasa Tattva. So you listen to him. Then you might say, Guru Maharaj, tell me about Rasa Tattva. And you go listen to so-and-so Maharaj. He knows. But you have this amazing relationship with your Guru. So that's what's important to you. But he's not an expert in Rasa Tattva, so it's not, you use that argument, but your Guru doesn't know enough. What? Does that mean you can't hear from others? But you have this special relationship where you feel so much strength in his guidance and so forth. Yes?
What happened if the Guru passed away?
Mm-hmm.
Can I make a reinitiation or something like that?
No. You already are initiated. You take Siksha Guru.
But sometimes I heard that people take refuge in another guru.
Yeah. If your guru falls down and he's no longer able to, but let's say your guru, I'm saying your guru, I'm her guru. So, okay, so I can use myself as an example without offending anybody. So let's say I get totally bewildered, and I end up just like, I stop chanting or whatever. And, I'm living in, Hawaii, surfing every day. Right? And so, okay, you think, that's like, I don't know. First you hear that and you go, he's just relaxing, he's having fun. But it's like 3 months, like, what's going on? We haven't seen him chant any rounds. Then it's like a year, it's like, okay, disciples get together and say, something happened. So at that point, then you think, okay, do I want to take shelter of another devotee, to take Diksha? Do I need that? You don't necessarily have to, because your Diksha was bona fide at the time, but you may want to. But your guru leaves the world, or your guru is very ill and he can no longer help you, or your guru has 40,000 disciples and you want to talk to him and you say, talk to somebody locally. I can't. So Siksha Guru, you can have many. And the function, and so I'm out there surfing on the beach, and let's say after 3 months my disciples convince me, like that. So I go in a hut, says I have 3 months of japa to make up for, So I'm just like, and you're all looking at this and you're saying, I can't really listen to him. I just don't have faith in him anymore, what he did. So you want to find a guru you have faith in that you can listen to. So you find Siksha Guru and say, I don't need Diksha because my guru gave me Diksha and now he's back on his feet. So he's still my Diksha Guru. But in terms of Siksha, instructions, I've lost my faith. So now I'm taking my instruction from someone else. So your Diksha is still valid. You're connected to the disciplic succession, but your faith in that Diksha Guru in terms of Siksha, you don't have it. And you have to have faith. His faith is essential. So you respect him from a distance, you gave me Diksha, you helped me, you guided me, you were the first person, whatever, all these things. But now my faith is in this person. And that's where I take my instruction. So that's okay. But that can happen even when your guru is in good standing, that you have faith in somebody else. So Diksha happens once. How long did it take us? An hour. So Diksha is an hour, and Siksha is ongoing. So Siksha is what's most important. The Diksha, it's the push, right? Now you're connected to Krishna. It's the Siksha, that's the sail, the wind behind your sail. The Siksha is going to keep you going. So if you take Diksha from somebody and someone else becomes the predominant person giving you instruction, he becomes more important than your Diksha Guru because he's the one who's actually really doing the work of taking you back to Godhead. But the Siksha Guru is a manifestation of Krishna, as is the Diksha Guru. The function is different. Now the Diksha Guru in ISKCON usually also is the Siksha Guru, because it's hardly that any Diksha Guru just gives Diksha and says, go take instruction from someone else. I'm Bhajananandi, I don't do that. And that could happen due to physical, or just, as we're saying, geographical situations. If your Guru has, thousands and thousands of disciples, and maybe he's disposed because of health, and you're in Argentina and he's not going to go there, and you're not going to see him, then you might gradually want to take shelter of a Siksha Guru because you feel the need for that personal guidance. And that Siksha Guru is a representative of Krishna, just as your Diksha. It's not like one cancels the other. It's like peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter doesn't cancel jelly. Peanut butter and jelly, it's a good combination. At least if you're American. I don't know if you like it if you're not American. Peanut butter and chocolate is a good combination. Just certain things are good combinations. So they're good by themselves and they're good together. So you have Siksha Guru, you have Diksha Guru, it's a good combination, you get more. Depends on the individual, what they want, what they need, where they are. It depends on the Guru. How accessible is he or isn't he? You have problems, can you talk to him? can he understand your problems without being there? There's so many considerations. So it's not like there's a right and wrong. The right thing is go back to Godhead, and whatever you do to get you back to Godhead, you do. The wrong thing would be, oh, I found a Siksha Guru, he's so smart, he's so this and that, but then you disrespect your Diksha Guru. That's a problem. You always, this is the person who's connected me to Krishna, I always respect him. But at this point in my life, I'm taking guidance from someone else. I find it's working for me better. So you know what I'm saying? If this is getting good and this is going down, that's not good. This is getting good and this yes.
Well, I make the translation of something that you write for the disciples. I think it's for the initiate disciples. And you mentioned that we have to have focus on Srila Prabhupada every time and every day. What is better? To follow the instruction or follow the advice of a Diksha or Siksha Guru, or follow the instruction that is right in the book of Srila Prabhupada?
She's asking, basically you're asking, if you find an apparent difference between what Prabhupada wrote and what your Guru has given you, then you should ask your Guru. You should ask that person. Say, Prabhupada says this, you said that, can you explain? So, sometimes what it is, you see, when you're reading Prabhupada's instruction, especially you're reading it for the first time, right? And you're hearing an instruction from someone who's been a devotee for a long time, the context of their understanding is much broader. So it might sound like they're not representing what Prabhupada said, when actually they may be explaining it completely, and it just doesn't appear that way. It's actually something I was thinking about last week, and it's a problem because you know how they say where there's an ice cap, you only see 10% and 90% is below. So I think a lot of devotees, especially in earlier days of Krishna consciousness, they're reading the 10% of the 90%. This is what Prabhupada said. So they're taking it verbatim, black and white, in a very narrow way. And because they don't understand the full context of Prabhupada's instructions, Prabhupada's life, their own experience with Prabhupada they didn't have. There's 90% that the senior devotees are explaining. So then you hear the 90% that you didn't see, and it seems to contradict the 10%. So sometimes it's like that. Or sometimes that guru or a person teaching may be emphasizing something. Like, for example, sometimes when I see there's a problem in a temple, an imbalance, I'll give a class and I'll talk about the other side exclusively. So it appears like my discussion is not reflecting everything Prabhupada said about it, but it's because they're so black and white. If I go gray, it's not going to help. I have to go all the way to the other side. I've got to go to black because they haven't heard the black. So then you might be thinking, why is he talking only black? That's not the whole picture. And he knows the whole picture. But they already know white. They know it too well and too much, so he talks black. So sometimes a guru, like some gurus will emphasize varnashram, living off the land. And they're emphasizing it so much because they feel it's de-emphasized in ISKCON. Or someone might emphasize book distribution so much because they feel it's de-emphasized in ISKCON. And then you'll say, why is he only emphasizing this? Prabhupada said this. This doesn't seem to be right. Yes?
I ask this because sometimes, devotees that I know use the instruction of Srila Prabhupada to manipulate the things.
Yeah.
And I think it's very delicate, this thing.
Manipulate other people?
Yeah. For example...
you mean leaders?
Yeah, the leaders.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes they make for example, the classes, and they use the instruction of Srila Prabhupada in these verbs or something like that to say something bad about the behavior of another, say something bad about the behavior of another person.
Yeah.
So it's because
well,
of that.
okay. So this is a good question, and I can only give a general answer. And the general answer I would give, let me rephrase the question, because I see it maybe and a little deeper level. You're listening to a class and somebody's saying something that you don't feel represents Krishna consciousness and doesn't represent Prabhupada. But he's a senior person, and it's hard for you because it appears to be wrong, or it's different from what other people have said. How do you deal with it? So the most important thing in dealing with these issues is you always have to maintain an attitude which will prevent you from becoming critical and offensive. Because if you become critical because he's critical, then you don't realize you're doing the same thing. Right? So that's very easy to happen. Now, will somebody misuse power? Yes, they will. Will somebody misrepresent Prabhupada, even though they're trying to represent him? It's possible they may misunderstand, or they may personally believe in something to the point where they start not talking about the other side of things that Prabhupada talked about. That's going to happen. So if you feel there's something wrong there, like I say feel, because sometimes it's not even in your head. You actually feel. It doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel like Prabhupada. Isn't it? Like it's just...
No, it's like...
It's one person gave a class, and I said, how did you like the class? And everything they said in the class was right. You couldn't argue. She said, it sounds right, but it feels wrong. And I thought that was perfectly expressed what I was feeling, but I didn't know how to say it. So sometimes you're like, something's wrong, and you can't point to it because they didn't say anything wrong. But it was so one-sided, or maybe derogatory, or something. It just, you come out of class and you don't feel inspired. So the question is, how do you deal with that? Do you deny your feelings? Do you think there's something wrong with me? I'm offensive? Maybe. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to go the other way and say, no, in the case where that's not the case, how do you deal with it? You come out of the class and you say, that wasn't right. And I've had devotees actually object to things that seniors have said in the middle of class and just say, that's not right. Because they felt it was going to have a bad effect. So they took that gamble, humbly. Say, Maharaj, if you say this, people will think this, and they'll misunderstand, and it will create this. And I would think it would be better to express it this way. And if the Maharaj is humble, he'll say, thank you, I made a mistake.
But if he is humble,
yeah.
But
if he's not humble, you'll be out the door. Yeah. So you have to make those decisions. And
it sounds familiar for me.
You may not live in the temple anyway, so you have nothing to lose. But if you, in some cases, I've been in classes like this, where someone senses that what is said is damaging, or philosophically it's not right, and they felt impelled to speak up. But that's generally senior people would do that. Whatever the case, the point is, okay, whatever the case is, you feel it's wrong, personally, that's okay. You can say, I know he's a nice devotee, but this one thing he said, I can't accept that, and remain respectful.
But I cannot if I feel this thing,
you can discuss it with other person.
Can I discuss with other person about it? Because it's like the fears often fears.
If the other person's not going to condemn you.
But if I'm going to criticize about another devotee, I'm making an offense of the Mahamashra.
Not criticizing. Just say what this devotee said in class, this point, that according to me, that's not our philosophy, or that's not what Prabhupada said. What do you think? It's not an offense, it's a question. Because inherent within that question is, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe what he said is right. But you can say, it didn't feel good to me, felt like something was wrong. Did you feel that also? Or can you explain, what did he mean by this? Because I always understood this, or Prabhupada said this. You see, it goes back to my first point. If we can approach our doubts and questions in a humble way, well, maybe I'm wrong, but this didn't feel right. This felt that I felt slighted, I felt criticized, I felt put down. This didn't feel like Prabhupada's mood. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I understanding it incorrectly? That's fine, because you don't want to deny your intelligence and you don't want to deny how you feel. At the same time, you don't want to become offensive. Mm-hmm. So it's a balance between saying, okay, I think something's wrong, but I could be wrong. But right now, I feel this was inappropriate, or I feel like what was said was going to discourage devotees. And I want to talk about it. Now, if you've been a devotee for 50 years, you wouldn't have that confusion. You would just go home and say, yeah, it was a good class, but that one thing, it was wrong. And you don't even have a doubt. Yeah, it's just wrong. That's him. And you go through your day. Well, that's what he does. You just know him. I had a godbrother. Every class was basically intimidating people for not living off the land. For a year. And so when you sat down for class, you already knew that's what he's going to talk about, because he only talked about that. Uh-huh. And you get back to land because this and that, the economy is going to fall apart, and we're working hard, but it's not what Prabhupada wanted. We're part of the system. We should be off the system, and but the angle was meant to make you feel guilty. Maybe he wasn't trying to make us feel guilty, but that's what happened. And so, what would the devotees do? Oh, that's so and so. They just laugh. It was like a joke. But because everybody knew that, so it wasn't like everybody walks out of the class. Oh, I should quit my job. What am I doing with my life? But if that happened, and you saw someone who just graduated university, he just got married, just had a baby, and he's thinking about quitting his job and trying to build a mud hut, and you're like, wait, you hear you say, I'm going to talk to you. You've got a 3-month-old baby. This is not the time to do this. But the class, and you got to understand, that's this devotee, that's his vision. So you may feel the need to intervene if you see other people are being affected by it. So I think that's totally justified, completely. And if you don't intervene sometimes and something bad happens, you'll regret it. So I should have intervened. But you have to learn how to be able to do that humbly. That's the challenge. How can I do it without thinking I'm better, I'm smarter, that this person is fatally confused, and how can I do that? And just trying to understand, okay, let me understand his point, why he's saying it, and so forth, and then discuss with somebody else humbly. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself in trouble. Because even if others agree with you, if you have the wrong mentality, then you're making offense. So a lot of times, one other thing to understand is we have a philosophy which is seen by different individuals according to their nature. So if your nature is, let's say, to go back to the land, and you're impassioned by this concept that we need to get out of cities onto the land, and we need to show people that. And you're impassioned by it. Why? Because Prabhupada talks about it everywhere in his books. And personally, Prabhupada hated cities. He despised this whole system. He loved Gandhi's village self-sustaining culture. That was Prabhupada. So if you're pushing it, you're totally backed by Prabhupada. But if you feel this person's pushing it to the point where book distributors are going to hang up their book bags, and Harinam Sankirtan parties are going to hang up their mridangas, and everybody's then you realize, hey, this isn't good. So you understand him, and you understand he's coming from Prabhupada, but you see the effect, and you say, this is not going to be good, and nobody said anything. And you say, you go, Maharaj, I really appreciate what you're talking about. I'm totally into this, but tomorrow when you give class, could you balance it out? Because a lot of book distributors are now having doubts, and book distribution scores are going down because they think that this is actually, we've distributed, millions of books, and still we don't have varnashram, and they think that they're wasting their time on the street. So could you address that? And he'll say, if he's sensible and rational, he'll say, thank you. Okay, I didn't know that. I'll do that. See? So that's fine. So for you, you shouldn't feel bad that you feel that way. This doesn't feel right. Don't feel guilty that you feel that way. That's just normal. That's how you feel. That's how you see. Then you discuss with him or discuss with somebody. Am I right? Am I wrong? You understand? Because the point is, I don't want you to shut down your intelligence and your feelings. But at the same time, I don't want your intelligence and feelings to cause you to make offense. You see? So that's the balance. Because to shut down your mind and your feelings means that we're basically reducing people to robots who shouldn't think. And we're trying to create a Brahminical culture, which is people who think. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be able to think and discuss in a friendly environment. Say, what about this? This point. Prabhupada said this. I think you've misunderstood this. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said this. And then, it's just like academic scholarship. It's the same thing. We can do that. They debate in Congress. They debate issues. There's etiquette to debate. They don't say, these are my points, these are your points. Yes?
You mentioned that, for example, if I found an advice from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in one of his books, and I followed this instruction, and I didn't ask you about it, I make an offense to you?
If that instruction goes against something I told you to do. So if I told you to do this, I told you to chant 16 rounds, then you read, Bhaktisiddhanta says if you don't chant 64, you're fallen. And so I ask you to do service A, B, and C, and then a month later you say, I didn't do it because I'm chanting 64 rounds. That, maybe not a big offense, but if you do something and then you neglect an order of your spiritual master because you got the instruction from a book, that's not good because he's depending on you to do this and you told him you're going to do it. Right? And the thing we have to understand about previous acharyas and their instructions is that you have to understand as they come down, what did Prabhupada simulate in all those instructions for us? Because you may see an instruction that's time, place, circumstance 300 years ago. And it's not the way Prabhupada presented Krishna consciousness. So I read in the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur this. I said, yeah, but Prabhupada didn't explain that. There were things done about 150 years ago in Gaudiya Vaishnavism that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta stopped. And so you read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, and he's talking about the practice that Prabhupada said we don't do. But you may not know that. So you say, oh, Guru Maharaj, I've taken up this practice, it's from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I said, Prabhupada, so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta stopped that, because people aren't qualified to do that. So if I get an instruction from a previous acharya or read a commentary, I want to make sure my conclusion is the same as Prabhupada's conclusion, the way I've understood it. So Prabhupada, he used the acharya's commentaries in his purports. So that's important. He's our founder acharya, it comes through him. So we would just want to make sure that my conclusion is the same as his. Mm-hmm. So that's a problem. And in theory, your guru's conclusion is Prabhupada's conclusion. So,
in theory.
Yeah. But at the same time, there can be various conclusions for one thing. Right, yes.
So Maharaj, just in the same context, yes, so there is, some instructions by our previous acharyas in the form of their book.
Yeah.
But how about, taking a Siksha Guru not within ISKCON, maybe outside ISKCON, some devotees, but talking same thing, not different sampradaya, not different even principles, chanting on holy names and same Gaudiya Sampradaya, but not in ISKCON. So there are...
Generally, if we're talking about taking a Siksha Guru outside of ISKCON, the question would be, who is it? If you were asking me, I have so-and-so as a Siksha Guru, what do you think? Then I can say, well, I know him, this, that, and the next thing. It's good, it's not good. This is what you'll learn, that's different from ISKCON, and so on. So you want to be more specific, who is it, Sometimes when I have a disciple who want to hear from someone outside of ISKCON, then they really want to hear, because there's something maybe they need or they can get, and I'll say, well, you understand they're representing a few ideas which are a little bit different than what we represent. Or maybe this particular guru, he's very, I don't know, for lack of a better word, disciple hungry. So we've seen initiated devotees go and get reinitiated because that new guru told them, your guru's bogus. Or you told him, I lack faith in this guru. Okay, I'll reinitiate you because you lack faith. That for him, that was... So that creates problems, even though the instructions are beneficial, So there may be cases like that. I don't think it's a good idea because they want to try to pull you into their organization, and that could create conflict. It will depend on the individual. In rare cases, it has worked well. In other cases, it didn't. I've seen situations. You see, there's another problem. This is a situation I've seen. And maybe you run into this a little bit. One guru gave his disciple permission for her to go to another guru to hear some higher topics because she wanted and he felt she was capable of hearing those things, right? And so she went, and she didn't tell anybody because she knew people would misunderstand, because this was a guru that generally ISKCON had asked devotees not to go to. Or they said, if you want to go, then just stay in their organization. Something like that. Don't stay with us. So there was some controversy around it. But anyway, for whatever reason, I could only guess that she had some capability to understand things that even he himself couldn't express as well or didn't know as much. And he said, okay. So what happened was the disciples at some point found out that she went there. And he told her, I will let you go, but I don't want this to be known to others because I don't want a mass exodus. He said, you're qualified, it's not going to... But if everyone's going, then it can create problems, just institutionally. So he said, I will go, and I will not tell anybody that I gave you permission, because me as a guru in ISKCON, it'll be trouble for me, but I could see that you would benefit. It's an exceptional case. So she went, the other disciples found out, and they all turned against her. And he could not tell the other disciples that he told her because it would create confusion. And then she turned against him because he didn't defend her. Because he gave her permission to go, and all the disciples turned against her, and he didn't defend her, and she lost faith in him. So, you know what I'm saying? The dynamics of these things, just there may be, in a sense, nothing wrong, and she benefited from hearing, but there's other dynamics surrounding it. So, you get some problems like that. But there are things, because I've listened to many gurus outside of ISKCON. Some of them were our godbrothers who were. And, occasionally I hear something, we don't teach that. That's not what we teach. So that creates a problem, because you're in a society that teaches one thing and they teach another. And sometimes it's so subtle, you don't even know what you just heard that's different. They say something and they go, wait a minute. And they heard that outside of our disciplic line. They heard it from somebody else. In Radhakund, some Babaji or something. Not exactly what we teach, but they're taking instruction there. And then it creates these kinds of problems. Then you have philosophical differences with your guru. Says, no, that's not our philosophy. No, the guru gives you your rasa. No, that's not our philosophy. The rasa, it'll be revealed. It's there. The guru will reveal it. It'll come through chanting. No, he gives it to you at initiation. No, that's what they say. No, we don't do that. No, but, so, okay. They used to do that, but we don't do it now. That's not what, so you get these. So every case is individual. Yes?
I have two commentaries about it. One is I read or I heard someday that Srila Prabhupada has a disciple and he has a good brother that he was like talking about things that he didn't want to hear. And he said to his disciple that please, if he come, please say that I'm busy or something like that, but please don't, I don't want to have to talk with him.
Mm-hmm.
Then it happens. This good brother arrived to Srila Prabhupada, and then the disciple said, no, Srila Prabhupada is busy, so he's not going to attend you. And the good brother was very angry because of that. And he said, no, you can't, but Srila Prabhupada told me that whatever I want to meet him, I can come here. And then by chance, Srila Prabhupada was crossing for the bathroom or something like that. And he said, Srila Prabhupada said, your disciple is telling these kind of things and blah, blah, blah. And Srila Prabhupada said, what kind of things are you saying to the disciple? And he said, you're not, what are you doing? Yeah. And he accepted the visit of this his good brother. And I don't know who write this thing. And he said, I understand this day that sometimes the instruction of the Guru, you have to be like in the context of the instruction of the Guru.
Prabhupada actually didn't want to see this person, as far as I remember, because the person was just going to complain about something like that. Just find fault and so on. But Vaishnava etiquette is such that you can't, once you see him, you can't. And so he just, if the disciple were smart, he would have understood. He wouldn't say, well, Prabhupada, you told me not to let him in. He said, I'm sorry, Prabhupada, I should have let him in. The disciple will understand that. Sometimes Prabhupada would do that. Yeah. So yeah, but that you have to understand the mind of your guru to know how to do that. So he's trying to protect Prabhupada because Prabhupada felt this person's just going to waste his time. There's no benefit. But once he saw him, that would have been an offense on Prabhupada's part to deny him. So the disciple should have known that and then.
So I think that it applies to the things that you mentioned, because sometimes you have to understand the mood of the instruction that your guru gave you.
Yeah. In
my case, for example, and in my case that is very delicate. And I heard many gurus from another sampradayas and all this stuff, but I don't have any problem about it because I don't have deal. But the other people that are around me have a lot of deal about it.
Yeah. Well, you're in an organization which has certain standards and culture, and some people will think a certain way. So if I do something and it's not wrong, but I know everybody's going to think it's wrong, then I'll have to question whether that is going to be helpful or harmful for my devotional service. Okay, let's say, like he asked this question, right? So I represent ISKCON. So I could say, yeah, sure, go wherever you want. Listen, there's so many great Vaishnavas, listen. But maybe I actually feel that way, and maybe I do that. But I can't say that publicly because I'll be shot down, because it's not ISKCON policy. I'm not saying I believe that, but I'm not saying I entirely believe it's bad to take. But the other funny thing is that we're adults, right? So no matter what we say, you're going to go online and even accidentally, an article is going to come up by so-and-so of Gaudiya Math or Gaudiya Mission or Gaudiya this or Gaudiya that or Vrinda. And you'll read it and wow, that was a really good article. That really helped me. And then, by so-and-so. You don't even know where, you say, do you know so-and-so left Prabhupada? He started his own movement. He's a fan. And you're like, but that article was really good. I really like that. And so whatever they say, you're like back on his website and you're like, well, these are really good articles. And I really learned a lot from this. So, that's a reality. So we're adults and, we do these things. So it's not my nature to go, no, don't do it. But I think at the same time, it's like, these are the liabilities, These are a few tattvas that they're teaching that we don't teach. And this is his angle, like we have a god brother. And he saw that so many people who took initiation didn't maintain their vows of 4 rounds, of 16 rounds and 4 regular principles. So he thought, what's the use of just saying I'm going to do 16 and 5 years later I don't. Why don't we make it more realistic? And as far as illicit sex, okay, keep it in marriage. But to say that everyone who takes initiation is perfectly going to be able to have no sex even when they're married, only 50 rounds. We said, okay, some will, but not everybody. So he thought, well, rather than create all this guilt and make these standards that people can't follow, why don't we just say, chant at least 4 rounds, 16 is what we should be doing, chant at least 4, and no illicit sex means outside of marriage. Before you're married or when you're married, just keep it in marriage. So now you're hearing from this person, and I say, okay, Prabhu, and this person also, when he preaches, he's going to tell you that you didn't fall from Vaikuntha, you fell from Brahman. So I say, okay, so let me explain why he's saying this, right? Like I explain, this is his thinking about 4 rounds, and 4 rounds and 3 principles, 3.5. And you'll say, oh yeah, that makes sense. And you'll say, Mahatma Prabhu, why don't we do that in ISKCON? You say, well, he's not part of ISKCON. He's not under the GBC. He's got his own society. He's experimenting with different ideas. This is what makes sense to him. We can't do that. Because Prabhupada, there's nowhere I can go when Prabhupada said, if 16 doesn't work, try something else. I can't do that. So he's taking that liberty, right? So you should know that. Why is he teaching that we come from Brahman? Well, some acharyas and have taught that. And if you go to Gaudiya Math, this is what they teach. So, I didn't know that. Yeah, okay. So this is what he's teaching. So now you know. Okay, so, all right. And then, what if you become attached and you want to be a Siksha disciple? Is that going to be a problem? Now he's someone outside of it. So, well, these would be the problems, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you understand. Now, if you're a mature older devotee, you understand that anyway. You read it, yeah, whatever, he thinks like this. But I like this article and this was good. But this other stuff, I don't think we should do that. I'm thinking of a particular godbrother. He's written an article and explaining that they're finding a lot of what they didn't know previously, that people are born homosexual or heterosexual. It's a chemical thing. Although people can turn homosexual, join the Catholic Church, you could become homosexual or something. Because it's all monks and no girls, That does happen. But also there's science that, gay men have a lot of estrogen, gay women have a lot of testosterone. So he was saying, that we shouldn't discourage them, we should, because that's the way they're born and this and that. But in ISKCON, there's a lot of discouragement towards homosexuality. He's saying, if guys want to live together, what's the problem? That's just their nature. It's better for their Christian, You can't say that in ISKCON. Even if you feel that way, you can't say it, because... But he can say it because there's nobody to shoot him. I mean, they can shoot him on the internet, but it doesn't matter. He's not part of that organization. You know what I mean? So now you want to hear from him. So I say, this is what you're going to hear. Whether you agree or not, that's another issue. This is the official position of GBC and ISKCON and so on. So now you know, okay. But if you're a mature older devotee, you'll see that and you go, okay, well, I don't really agree with that, but I like his article on this. So the problem, if it is a problem, I don't know if it is a problem, the problem, if it is a problem, is that we're adults. And so, we can't just say, don't do this because this is bad. Although in some cases we have to because it is bad. But in some cases it's kind of gray. It's not necessarily bad. It's just my feeling is, in some cases it's hard to put those two societies together. There's nothing like inherently bad or wrong, but they're two different organizations that have some differing opinions and the way they give initiation and how many rounds of certain views, and sometimes it doesn't work and then you get conflicted. Well, this organization, you only have to chant 4 rounds, and they'll initiate you within 3 weeks. Right? Now, what's the problem with that? The problem is a lot of our second generation devotees go there to get initiation because they can't chant 16. And we can't do that. And so we have people growing up in ISKCON joining other movements because they can get initiation there. And then a lot of those people want to work in ISKCON because they like ISKCON better. So, crossbreeding. And we're a young movement. And so I can't throw my opinions out of what I think is right and wrong because I have to represent at least the general idea of what's going on in ISKCON, which 100 years from now could be completely different. Maybe 100 years from now, I doubt this would happen, but ISKCON realizes, 80% of the people initiated are not following, so why don't we just say 4 rounds and 3.5 principles, because everybody can do that. And the GBC passes it, after this intense discussion and debate, and 3 people got shot in the head, and because this is sacrilegious, less than 16 rounds. It's right in the books, Prabhupada said. So who knows, And we may come out of our graves and start fighting. No, you can't do that. It has to be 16. Yes?
So, it's not that we are going against Prabhupada by reducing the rounds, and if GBC comes to this decision, because Prabhupada, he only said that we should never compromise with the quality. We should always, we want quality people, not quantity.
Prabhupada, yeah. But Prabhupada never gave initiation for less than 16. So if you want to chant less, it's fine. But if you want to get initiated, that's the problem. This is kind of like a theological conundrum that the GBC of the future is going to have to deal with, because in the future, society is going to be different, and they're going to look at ISKCON and they're going to say, Prabhupada did this in the 60s. These were all hippies, and they were totally renounced. They were already sleeping on the floor and living like sadhus, and they were counterculture, and they dropped out and they weren't interested. And Prabhupada was there inspiring it. And they were in the beginning of a movement, and they were so excited. And they all lived together in temples. Why is it hard to chant 16? You're living in a temple with 50 brahmacharis. And they're going to look at it 100 years from now and say, okay, how many people who are initiated chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 Megadic principles? Let's do some statistics. And they do statistics, and they say, very small percent. So why are we initiating people, so many in numbers? Should we change it? And they're going to have this debate. I don't know or think that they would change that, because I don't think there's anywhere they can find something direct enough where Prabhupada said, at some point in time in the future, you can adjust these principles. I've never read anything like that. Time, place, circumstance is a general instruction. So these are the conundrums we're going to have to deal with, like reality on the ground and principle. So do you compromise because of reality on the ground? And they might say, the GBC might say, let less people get initiated. Let them get initiated when they're 50 or 40, or after they had kids or something. Or let only rare people get initiated, and make initiation really hard, because it's just a farce. And let's open up to a congregation. We need Varnashram, and we're pushing people to get initiated because we don't have Varnashram. They'll have all these discussions. We're so busy in setting the foundations of ISKCON that these discussions seem like so obvious that we should have. There's no time for it, because, cracks in the foundations. And, this is kind of like second floor stuff, isn't it? So that's part of the problem, the way I see it. Second floor stuff, that'll happen later. It would be better if it happened now, because you have so many senior disciples of Prabhupada. It would be better to have their input. But, or maybe we'll be smart enough to talk about these theological things, to hand it over to the next generation. Say, this is what I think you're going to be faced with. This thing's definitely going to come up. 16 rounds, 4 principles. It's going to come up, because it's hard to do. And as Kali Yuga progresses, it's going to be harder. Practically now, pornography is in your face everywhere. Victoria's Secret. That in 1950 was hard porn. What is on the windows of mall shops that 5-year-old boys have to look at. That was hard porn in 1950. So give it 50 years, what's going to be on the windows of Victoria's Secret in 50 years? A guy and a girl naked doing it? Probably. And people walk by, what's wrong with that? So how much harder is it going to be? in an environment like that. How hard is it going to be married to one woman? Probably you had your first girlfriend when you were 6 or 7 in that culture. And had sex when you were 12. 3 times a week until you get married after 48 girlfriends. How are you going to stay with one girl? We're going to have a hell of a time just keeping people married a couple hundred years from now. Unless the world blows up and people go crazy. Which might happen, and they rectify everything and they realize it. But the rate they're going now, it's going to be really hard. And 80% will be raised with parents who aren't married, who will leave, and they'll be all psychologically troubled. It's going to be a real challenge, I think. You think it's bad now? Whoa. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is the 10%. The 90% is underneath. Unless there's a disaster in the world and people go back to a more religious way of life, because they're heading away from it. I was in Ireland 2 years ago, and the devotees were saying nobody goes to the Catholic Church anymore. They've lost faith in it because of all the problems they've had. So, what happens when a Catholic country doesn't attend the Catholic Church? What's going to happen to that country in 100 years? There will be no morals left. Where there's no religion, there's no net to catch you. So where does it end, right? I mean, just the abortion issue. If you hear the rhetoric of the abortion issue when they talk about it, women should have the right to do whatever they want, and they use it. They couch it in terminology which makes it sound like an issue of freedom. You're killing somebody, and you couch it in the issue of freedom. It is so degraded, and people are like, yeah, we should do what we want. Their brains are shut off. They don't work anymore. So give it a couple hundred years, What are they going to be thinking, And Prabhupada predicted at some point in Kali Yuga they would kill their children. Because Prabhupada said the taste of human flesh is so much better than animal flesh. He said once they get a taste, they'll start killing humans. Rakshasa. Do you know that Prabhupada said that? Once they get a taste of it. Because what's the biggest argument against meat eating? You want to know the biggest argument against it? Is it tastes good. That's it. I can't live without my meat. What did you just say? I can't live without the taste of meat. Never mind that I'm killing an animal. So this is where society is, right? And we have this, what they call the me generation, millennials. It's all about me. Everything's about me. I have to feel good. I can't do it if I don't feel good. And what was traditional society about? It was about community. What's good for the community. Right? And why didn't you have divorce in those societies? Because people were community, self-sacrifice oriented. Now people are me oriented. No, I don't feel good. I don't like the way you do things doesn't make me feel good. I'm leaving you. That's what we're coming to. So, GBC 100 years, they're going to have to, really, it's going to be interesting, I think. I was going to write a book called 2084. And I still might write it because I see these issues and I see, we need to be talking about this stuff. Because if you project where society's going to go and you just project where ISKCON's going and the troubles and the challenges we're having now and just project that forward another 60, 70 years, you kind of can get an idea of what the GBC is going to have to deal with. There's no Prabhupada disciples here. By 2050, 2040, there's nobody left. And if anyone's left, they're not going to be that active, and it may not be somebody who could actually help that much. So, given like 30, 40 years, it's a whole new generation. And there's not these old conservative people that, were with Prabhupada from the beginning and are going to say, it was like this. There may be some, but there's going to be less, for sure. And there's going to be, people who grew up in the 80s. They think differently than the people who, when we did, growing up in the 50s. It's going to be different. And they're going to have to tackle these issues. And this definitely is going to be one of them. Because it already came up like 20 years ago. To go from 4 principles to 3. Because some devotees said, nobody can follow the 4, so just make 3. And he was a Prabhupada disciple. And it was kicked out, smashed. No, you can't do it. And we've had gurus leaving, saying Prabhupada shouldn't have made 4 principles. So it's already there. The seeds are there. It's going to come up. We have some devotees out here who want to say something, so why don't we read? Krishna Karshani. I was wondering, maybe we should not take too many Siksha gurus. Oh yeah, so yeah, we talked about that. We tend to think initiation is the goal. We make effort to get initiated, and after get initiated, we relax. Yeah, the Beatles talked about that. Turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream. Don't chant that mantra after initiation. Don't play that song after initiation. Relax, turn off your mind, and float downstream. That's how we think. Strawberry fields forever. Diksha forever. I made it. I rather meant in my question that hearing too many gurus could make us a bit confused because different gurus may see KC in different way. We can be confused, especially when we are beginners. Yeah, some people like to hear different gurus because one of them is bound to say something that they want to hear. You know, so it's like, I don't like my guru's advice. I don't like my Siksha guru's advice. Let me get like 3 more because one of them is bound to say something. So you don't want it for that reason. That's fun. Priya, I'm in Richmond, Virginia right now. I meant what to do when I chant inattentive because I keep reminding myself to chant in a mood of prayer for strength to be steady. Okay. You shouldn't remind yourself to be in a mood. You should be in a mood. So that's the problem. Like, if you have to remind yourself to be in a mood, you're not in the mood. So you have to try to get in the mood by bypassing the mind. Because if you have to go into your mind, you lose your mood. You can't be in your mood if you're in your mind. Because mood is actually a state of emotion more than a state of thinking. Like, okay, let's get in the mood of love. Okay, I'm thinking, love. What does it mean to be in the mood of love? It's an emotion. It's not a thought, right? Yeah. So, yes. So try to go into the mood, and then you don't think yourself into the mood. Feel yourself into the mood. Then you don't have to go in the mind. Try it. See if it works. So Jita says, I read somewhere for a senior devotee wrote that even different gurus have different moods. We have to learn to see their goals are the same to serve Prabhupada. Yes. Like one person said, he sees all the gurus as different aspects of Prabhupada. So scary. What's scary? Yeah. Yeah, okay. That was what they had to say. Yeah. I don't know what's scary. Well, that was a Facebook message. No. Ajita, what's scary? Going outside or I don't know. Yeah, a lot of these issues we're discussing are institutional issues. So it'll depend on where you are, what your community is like. Like you, let's say you are very inclined to hear from so-and-so Maharaj, but so-and-so Maharaj is outside of ISKCON, and you're old friends with him and you like him. But if people in your community find out they're very conservative, this and that, it'll disrupt everything. So you might just not do it just to preserve the purity, set an example. Or you might feel, okay, it's okay for me, but if other people did it, they wouldn't know how to handle it, and therefore, if I'm doing it, they're going to want to do it, and it's going to create a whole big problem. So sometimes you have to make these sacrifices. And sometimes it may be that, okay, you just might read a book that this person wrote, and it's just private, and you put a cover on it, nobody knows. And, you're a devotee, you're ISKCON, it's like, there's no question, but it may be awkward if other people knew that. And we had a problem with one of our godbrothers who left. And another godbrother, who was a very good devotee in ISKCON, went to the GBC and said, you should let him back in ISKCON, but just let him back in as he is. So he let his organization stay the same, but not be ruled by the GBC. So rather than keep him outside of ISKCON, just make ISKCON bigger. So GBC didn't approve it, but maybe in the future that might happen, where you get this compromised It's just, okay, in this organization, which is part of the broader ISKCON, that's what they're doing. Because the Catholic Church has that. The Jesuits are an example of that. They're an order within the Catholic Church that was opposed to many of the Catholic principles, but they didn't want a reformation, so they kept them within the organization. So these things may happen. And they may look at us, into the year 2000, thinking, oh, the devotees were so narrow and conservative. They should have just had little different orders, like this is the order that wears the purple, if you see nuns, they don't all wear black, some wear blue, some wear gray. Those are different orders established by different people. They're not the same. They're little tweaks. Future Kali Yuga is scary, yeah. Should I write my book, 2084?
Why 84, Maharaj?
Because there's a book called 1984 by George Orwell.
Oh, I see.
So this is 2084.
Okay.
What the world will be like, what the ISKCON world will be like. Well, you see, what it is you see seeds. The book would simply be see seeds and say, how is this seed going to grow? You would see seeds in ISKCON, and you would see seeds in society, and say, I have to speculate a little bit what this plant's going to look like, because this is what it looks like now. And it didn't look like this in 1970 when Prabhupada was here, but it looks like this now. So a lot of senior devotees see a lot of things sprouting that didn't sprout during Prabhupada's time. And a lot of these things that sprouted have become mainstream in ISKCON. So we're looking at this going, how did this happen? Because this would not have happened with Prabhupada here. So if someone doesn't pull those sprouts, then they become something. And then you joined ISKCON in 2018, and you saw those as the flower of bhakti, but they're actually weeds. But for you, that's normal. And then when I try to pull it, you go, why are you pulling that? We've always had that. And I go, it's always been wrong. And you get upset. How could it be wrong? We've always had it. Right? So that's what the book would be about. Something like, all these seeds sprouting because you can see them. Right? The interesting book. I don't know how accurate I would be, but it would make good conversation.
I think they already have some kind of committee to start discussing about these things.
Yeah. It's being discussed, but there's only so much you can discuss.
So much, yeah.
So, not everything's being discussed. That's the problem. What's not discussed will be left to the next generation to discuss. So this generation wants to discuss as much as they can because they want to hand over some solutions to the next generation. But even the next generation may not like those solutions. So, Krishna Karshan says, I was hearing class of Lakshmi Mani. She said that the problem is that devotees are so naive to think that Srila Prabhupada will never die. So not ask important questions. Yeah, it could be. I think also we didn't know the important questions because sometimes you can't imagine what it's going to be like after Prabhupada left, so you don't know. But I will tell you, Krishna Karshani, Yogeshwar Prabhu, he asked Prabhupada a lot of important questions. I heard him speaking once, and he said, I asked Prabhupada this and that, and I was really impressed. Because I was thinking some of those questions were never asked before. And I was thinking, that is a really good question. But we weren't envisioning the problems we're having, so we couldn't envision the questions asked, because we just thought everything was going to kind of be the same. This is why there's so many misunderstandings in ISKCON, so maybe better to discuss all the hot topics now. I agree, because we will have even more of a movement in the future. You'll have more hot topics. Yeah, I agree. I think part of the challenge is I can discuss the hot topics, but it's just me. And you can accept or reject. So it needs, the more that are discussed on the managerial level, even locally managerial level. What's the world going to be like in 50 years and where are we going to be? One of the things you learn about business strategy is that you have to know where the world's going to be and you have to be there when it's there. That's how you succeed. So where will the world be in 30 years? And is ISKCON ready for that world? Where will Richmond, Virginia be in 30 years? Where do you want to build a temple? Where's in 30 years, that part of the city, where's it going to be? Because I could buy 15 acres here, but in 30 years, that's going to be like the head of, right in the middle of the best suburb. Because we find out, this company, that company is moving here, this and that. So that's how businesses do it, right? Wherever Walmart and McDonald's show up, it's a happening place, right? That's where you build your next temple. But to be able to see into the future and have some idea where society's going and be ready for that, that's why businesses succeed. Can we know the future? We can guess, but I think it's worth guessing a little bit. So I think we should stop because it's time for breakfast.
Yes.
At least this part of the world. It's actually past time for breakfast, like an hour past. Anyway, good discussion. This class was spontaneous, so I don't know my schedule for the next few days, but I arrive Wednesday in Dubai. Probably nothing will happen, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, things will happen. And if I don't really know my schedule, I will just show up on Facebook whenever I show up. And if I do know my schedule, I will post it. And even if I do know my schedule, sometimes, like this morning, let's have class. We decided about 10 o'clock last night. So you're welcome coming here. And as I said last time, say hello to all the snow in Switzerland for me. I'll tell you the story, but the first time I saw snow. So I was raised in Southern California, and then I was posted in Vancouver. And there was snow, and it was very human. And the snow would sit on the top of cars as ice blocks. Like you buy ice blocks, to freeze things. These big ice blocks because of the humidity. And I would think we're living inside a refrigerator. And my thought, being raised in Southern California, is why would anyone want to live inside a refrigerator? Like, why does anybody live in a city? I don't understand. This makes no sense to me. You're living inside of a refrigerator. Don't you realize that? Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.